Hello and welcome on back, everybody. So I recently did a video talking about the new proc scaling changes that ZeniMax has proposed and put on the PTS, and in that video you guys saw that the proc values seem to be a little bit intense. Since then, ZeniMax has made some changes on the PTS to how procs scale. Specifically, the weapon and spell damage scaling changes are now 6,574 weapon or spell damage for these proc sets to reach their original values, up from the previous 5,478. Now, at first glance, it does seem like that's going to help a lot with a lot of these proc sets that are hitting super hard on the PTS. However, after going and doing some testing, I realized that there is a net less than 10% damage reduction to the amount of damage that procs are doing from the previous test that I did. And here you guys can see both tests, the old test on the left and the new test on the right. And if you look at the numbers, there is not a huge difference in the amount of damage that these proc sets are doing. And well, as you guys can see, it is a little bit less damage, but this still seems like a ton of damage to deal to a player just from the procs on your set alone. Now here's a quick peek at the build that I'm using for this test. Something really worth noting is that in the second test, I'm actually using a build that has about 500 or 600 less weapon damage than my original test build had. So the fact that we can still almost approach the same amount of damage, even though we have a weaker build in the second test, that's a little bit of a red flag for me. Now, I wasn't really satisfied with this. I wanted to see how much damage we could actually do to a fairly tanky player with a lot of hit points. So I had my friend Mad Shadowman put together a 50k plus hit point build, and he's got about 26k resists on this build. Now for this test, however, I wanted to use a proper combination attack with an ultimate included and a stun to see if we could actually kill him through his full hit point value with the combo with the procs on top. And it turns out from the tests at 50k hit points, we can kill him from full health with this combo. Now, as you can see, once he hit about that 55k plus hit point value, we started not being able to kill him with the outright burst of the combo. But still, the fact that we were able to put 50k damage into a player like that, using proc sets to deal a majority of that damage, well, it seemed a little concerning to me. So then I started to wonder, why is it if ZeniMax has changed these values by such a large margin that the proc sets are still dealing almost as much damage as they were before? Well, it turns out ZeniMax decided to sneak in a new champion star into the mix. And this champion star here is going to increase the amount of direct damage that you deal by 10%. Now, the proc sets were nerfed to have about a 17% reduction in effectiveness thanks to the new scaling values. But now they also get a 10% bonus to their damage thanks to this new passive. So net, we have less than a 10% damage cut from the proc sets versus the first test. And it's not just that. If we take another look here at the page where ZeniMax shows the new scaling values, thanks to this 10% damage increase, a lot of these proc sets that ended up getting nerfed actually ended up having no changes at all, and some of them ended up getting buffed. Now this of course only includes proc sets that count as direct damage. Anything that counts as a different type of damage, like a damage over time, didn't end up getting that 10% buff and is instead feeling the full nerf of the changes to the scaling values on the PTS. Now this brings me to my next point, and that's talking about damage in PvP in general. Outside of proc sets, damage has been really high in PvP since the new changes to the champion system. If you add proc sets to the mix, damage starts to get really out of control. And this new champion passive that allows us to get a 10% increase in direct damage again just further pushes the amount of damage that you can push in PvP. Now, I'm a damage player. I've always liked to play damage builds, and I love playing builds where you can burst your opponent very quickly. However, seeing these kinds of damage numbers is a little concerning to me. Not only are damage builds going to be hitting insanely hard in this new patch, but on top of it, you're going to need a lot of defense in order to soak up the amount of damage that can come out. I guess what I'm saying is my biggest concern is that we might actually see a meta where damage is too high in PvP. And what that will turn into, I'm not really sure. Will people overreact by building super tanky, or will everyone just go all in on the proc damage and it'll just be a one-shot party for everybody? And something really worth mentioning here is the PvE side of proc sets. When their proc sets are doing things like dealing way too much damage in PvP, they inherently will get nerfed over time, and that results in proc sets being worse and worse for PvE. A big reason why this disconnect is so huge right now is the introduction of this new champion system. We can deal a lot more damage to players than we used to, but we also deal a lot less damage to NPCs than we used to. And this puts proc sets in kind of a weird position, because for them to be strong enough to be viable in PvE, they are complete overkill in PvP. Now the option for this, I'm not really sure. Procs are already affected by Battle Spirit just like any source of outgoing damage. I think the only way to bring balance back to proc sets so that you can use them in both PvE and PvP without having to worry about them being under or overpowered in one of those environments is to add some sort of damage reduction to proc sets in a PvP only environment. Otherwise, if it's left the way the champion system is set up now, proc sets will never reach that balance point between PvE and PvP environments. Now maybe ZeniMax wants proc sets to be more focused around the PvP side of things, and they want PvE to be more focused around crit builds. I mean, PvP heavily favors stamina builds, where PvE will heavily favor magicka builds. So there is definitely a bit of a divide in there, and maybe that is intended by ZeniMax. Either way, the way things are right now, proc sets are going to be way too strong in PvP, while also retaining very little usefulness in PvE. And the very last thing that I want to talk about regarding proc sets here is their individual values. There is a huge discrepancy between power levels of the different proc sets. I mean, a set like Scavenging Demise has a massive 20k plus tooltip on the build I'm running on the PTS. If you compare that to the live tooltip of Scavenging Demise, it can barely get over 14k. So it seems like a lot of these sets have a lot more power coming into the new patch than they used to, while other proc sets seem to be just as bad as they used to compared to the rest of the competition. So I think if ZeniMax took some time to go through all of the different proc sets in the game and re-evaluate how they're balanced and how much damage they deal, it could really help alleviate some of these outlier issues for these sets that we have dealing so much damage on the PTS. Now, unfortunately, there is only 1 week to go until this new patch will hit the live server, which means there is almost no chance that any of this will be changed, and this is exactly how we're going to see this on live. I personally wish that ZeniMax would take a lot more time actually testing changes. I feel like they just throw things on the PTS off the top of their head and they just see how people react to them and balance from there. I don't know, a lot of these proc sets reach these insane values that if you had sat down for just 1 minute and thought critically about what these sets could and couldn't do in a PvP environment, you'd realize that this was not a good idea. Either way, it looks like this is what we're in store for come the new patch. So I would love to hear what you guys think about these changes. I would love to hear what you guys think about the future of PvP going forward and the future of proc sets in general. What do you guys think would be the ultimate fix to make proc sets viable in both a PvP and PvE environment without them being crazy under or overpowered? As always, let me know down in the comment section below. If you guys want to send in your own clips for the top 5, or if you guys want to send in a build video to be featured on the channel, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. You can check out my website, KristoferESO.com, for written guides to all my builds, as well as a hub for all of my ESO content. Give me a follow on Twitch if you guys want to catch that live gameplay, and you can follow me on Twitter if you guys want to keep up to date with me. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They can give you better ping to your favorite games, and they're free to try for the first month. Link down below for you guys. And of course, last but certainly not least, a massive thank you and shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you so much for making this job possible for me. And thank you everybody just for tuning in and watching today. I know I teased a lot of Stam Sork for you guys, and you will be seeing a Stam Sork build coming from me within the next day. So look forward to that. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Have a great night, everyone.